And before we get started, I would really love if you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you can get the latest content from the YouTube channel, The Last Rewind. And don't be shy about leaving your comments at the bottom of the page because you are the sole reason why this channel will be successful. Thank you.
Hello, what is going on, everyone? This is Tremaine coming to you from The Last Rewind. I'm going to get into this one. Remember I said on one of my last videos, I said I'm starting a series of just, when we used to watch shows and television as children and teenagers, we will watch it from the viewpoint of a child or a teenager. But now, as we look back on some of these things that we watched a long time ago, your emotions and your feelings change, or you feel more sympathy for a certain character, and like, why were they doing this to this character? And I'm gonna touch base on that today. And what I'm going to touch base on is a very popular show that's very beloved in households. It was part of the TGIF lineup. Very beloved in households, and it's Family Matters. Yeah. We're going to do it with Family Matters. Family Matters was an awesome show. I love Family Matters. I will watch it now if it comes on. I don't go looking for it now, but if it comes on, I'll watch it. If there's a particular scene that I remember, if I'm scrolling through social media, I may catch that and watch it. But it was an awesome show. But as an adult, I look at Family Matters a bit differently. As a grown man with my own house and my own stuff, a mortgage and a family, I look at Family Matters and I feel so sorry for one person particularly on that show. And it's not Steve, who seemingly was the star of the show. It's Reginald Vale Johnson's character of Carl Winslow. Carl Winslow did so much for this family, and I don't think he ever was appreciated completely by his family. Let's break it down. Let's go to the first season of Family Matters. You got Carl and his wife living in the house. You got their 3 kids, and I put quotes around 3 because we all know what happened later as the show went on with the 3rd child. So he got 3 kids, Eddie, Laura, and Judy. Then he has his sister-in-law and her newborn living in his house. How many paychecks was coming in that house at the time? Oh, not to mention his mother moved in too. So how many paychecks was coming in that house at that time? It was one. It was Carl Winslow's police officer paycheck. Now, this may be a little bit of a deep dive here, but I did the research. The show lasted from 1989 until 1998. So the bulk of the show was in the 90s. Carl Winslow was a police officer in Chicago, Illinois in the 90s. He had to be, I've done the research, had to start out making about 27 grand. He got once he was a cop for 6 months, he was increased to 29K. The max was probably about 45, 50K Carl Winslow was making. I bring that up because he had a nice house. He was providing for his family. And he had to have a side account somewhere to fix all the shit that Urkel was breaking in this man's house. Hear me out. If there's any one person who should have been tired of Steve Urkel, it should have been Carl Winslow. Not only is Steve Urkel harassing his daughter, let's Not forget that, because in this day and age, what Steve Urkel was doing then will be harassment. And you would need to file a restraining order on this dude. It would be harassment. So not only was he harassing Carl's daughter throughout the duration of the show, pretty much, every time, Steve would make something or there was major damage to their home, it was because of Steve Urkel. Steve Urkel will come with his new invention, and he's made a goddamn rocket or something, who knows, and he messes up the man's home. Ain't nobody else paying for this. It was Carl paying for this. Carl was the only one working at the time. Carl is paying for this. And then when everyone is just everyone's mad at Carl because Carl often kicks Steve out the house. I would kick his little ass out too. You don't ruin my front room, you ruin my furniture, my TV, my roof. I remember one time you had a food fight, you're wasting my groceries. I would kick his ass out my home too. But what happens by the end of the episode? Carl sits down with Harriet, his sister-in-law, his mom, and they always make Carl seem like the bad guy for kicking him out. And they're like, oh, Carl, that boy didn't mean that. He has the biggest heart. He just wants to be around you. He had his family. Urkel had a family. Now, we never saw him, which leads me to believe why we never saw his mother and father. Why is Steve Urkel, a teenager, always hanging out with a grown police officer? Remember the episode he was playing poker with Carl and the other police officers? He hung out with Carl more than he hung out with Eddie and Laura, like with other teenagers. And I'm like, why is this little boy, I would be like, why is this little boy always at my house? My daughter has declined wanting to go out with you several times. Don't come back. But what happens? Years go on. And Urkel slowly but surely moves his ass in the house. By the time they were in the last season, Urkel was living in the house because his parents went to Russia or some shit without him. So they were like, "Oh, we're gonna move him in." Not only did Urkel move in, Orlando Brown, 3J was his character. They just adopted him. He moved in. Thelma Hopkins, her character was Rachel. She just left the show, but left her child for them to raise. If I'm Carl, I'm like, nah, he got to go too. Carl invested in Rachel's place. He invested in the restaurant. And who did they hire at the restaurant? Steve. So not only is Steve now messing up my house, he's messing up my investment now because he's breaking stuff at the restaurant. But they always made Steve out to be this great guy who was just so in love with Laura that he had to harass this man and his family. And Laura repeatedly was like, no, I don't want nothing to do with you. Now, there was a few episodes, I think maybe one or two, when I thought they were going to stick to their guns and really let Steve just be done with them. There was one, I think it was a Christmas episode that Steve broke something and Laura was done with him. She's like, I never want to see you again. And they did the same thing to Laura. Oh, he didn't mean it. He just was a misguided young man. He was always breaking stuff, always causing ruckus in their household. But by the end of the episode, they forgive him and he come back, and do the same thing. I thought that one Christmas episode, Laura was going to stick to her guns and really be like, no, I don't ever want to see you again in this house. But Steve will always whine and complain, or he'll do some kind of great gesture, and they come with open arms. He can come back with open arms back to the house and start wrecking their home again. I mean, again, I'm a grown man with a home, and I've acquired some things, and I don't want a neighbor like that. If I had a neighbor like that, if I had a neighbor who's obsessed with my daughter and then become obsessed with me or my family to the point where he wants to just hang out at my house. This cat was coming to the house when they were asleep. He was in Carl and Harriet's bedroom sleepwalking. He was singing to Laura through the window. Like, I would not want this dude as my neighbor. I would not want this dude as my neighbor because he was annoying. He was annoying. He always just made their life more difficult, more of a living hell, especially Carl's. Carl was paying for all of this. And what would really kind of like throw me off, because sometimes he would make an invention and it would work. It would work for like 5 seconds, and Carl will be like, "Oh, it really works, Steve," and they're dancing and laughing, and it blows up, or it catches on fire, and then he kicks him out. But then go to commercial break, his ass is right back in the house. I would not want that boy as my neighbor. His parents was always gone. Never saw his parents. The only time you saw his house is when he was in this dark basement making stuff. He made a freaking chamber to turn into another person. How out of touch his parents had to be with him for him to be making bombs and chambers and all this stuff in their basement, and then take it over to the next door neighbor's house and blow up their house. He was the Steve Urkel character. It has to be said, and I'm going to say it right now. The Steve Urkel character was okay for the time being, but as a grown adult, if you look at that show now, I'm calculating the amount of money that went back into this house. I'm calculating the amount of repairs that went back into this house because Steve just broke something, or it had to be repaired because of his invention. He was always hanging out with Carl. He was always hanging out with Carl and getting into situations with Carl. Carl was a grown man. Carl wanted to come home to peace. Carl was a police officer in Chicago in the 90s. Let me say that again. Carl Winslow was a police officer in Chicago in the 90s. Do you think he wanted to come home to your damn scientific invention? This man wanted to come home and relax. And they were always like, "Oh, Carl, you're stress eating," because Carl was fat. Well, Carl had to be fit enough to be a police officer. He had to pass some physical condition test to be able to be and remain a police officer for the duration of the show and make money. So he had to be fit enough for that, you know. Like, he's stress eating. Well, yeah, he's stress eating. He got to pay for everything. He paying all the bills. He paying for all the repairs. Yeah, I would cringe too every time this boy comes to my house, because I know it's going to end up in a bill. we gotta say the Steve Urkel character was annoying. He had some funny moments. I would give him that. Jaleel White did bring out a little bit of some funny in the character. I won't take that away from him, but I definitely would not want this little boy to be my neighbor. I wouldn't want his parents to be my neighbor, because I'm wondering, like, where's your parents, man? Where are your parents? Why don't we ever see them, and why are you always at my house? I mean, it was to the point where, you know, I believe they took an insurance policy out on him at one point because it got so bad. He was messing up offices and cars, and Carl had a heart attack one time because of him. Granted, I believe Steve saved him, but he also was the cause of it. Health became an issue. I was like, this dude got to go. And then what happens to sum it all up? Once Family Matters leaves the TGIF lineup and goes over to CBS, and that was done very quietly, mind you, like You just like one time, like you're watching TV and Family Matters last season on CBS, and then what happens? The same young man who has cost you all this money over the years, who has cost you all this headache and hell, he ends up marrying the daughter who turned him down for a decade. I always thought Steve should have ended up with Myra. I thought she was a better fit for him. She looked better than than Laura, but he actually has some things in common with Myra. They were both quirky. They like cheese. I mean, they were. She was a better fit for him, but he just stuck with Laura, and he wanted to be with Laura. And what happens? He ends up marrying her. He goes into space. He ends up marrying her, and now he's married into the family. So God knows the amount of money is about to come out of Carl Winslow's account now. At that point, I'm like, all right, you and him got to go. I can't do this anymore. I can't keep fixing stuff he keeps breaking. It also got kind of corny. Also, like the last maybe 2 seasons of Family Matters started to get corny. Like Julia White's character Urkel wasn't even wearing suspenders anymore. He was wearing like high water khakis. You can tell the gimmick was done. It was over. Very good show for the time being. Still a good show, but watching it now as an adult, the Steve Urkel could not have been my neighbor, nor could his parents, because I would have lost my mind. This boy would have had to come out of the pockets for all the things he was costing me. He ran a car through the living room. No, was that Eddie? I think it was Eddie, but Steve had something to do with it. He did the rocket and through the living room, the roof. I mean, there was always breaking of furniture. I know he totally wrecked their garage at one point. He backed into it. At that point, I'm like, look, he can't come over here anymore. And Harriet and all them would have just had to understand. Carl Winslow could not get no peace in that house to save his damn life. I remember one episode, Carl wanted to go on vacation to a lake, and they all wanted to go to Hawaii or somewhere else, but Carl wanted to go to a lake. Carl's paying for this, but they wouldn't even let this man go to the lake. I think eventually they did let him go, but overall, this man could not catch a break in his house. He could not get peace in his home. And watching it from an adult's viewpoint, Steve Urkel could not have come to my house that many times. Of the very first episode, when he came in the house with the flowers dripping, I'll never forget it. And that was his very first episode, and he took Laura to the dance. I'm like, all right, you can't come back. Can't do this no more with you. Great show, though. Great show. On that note, I'm going to head out. You guys, like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. That would be appreciative. I'm out. Peace.